Welcome to live training, where the biggest week of the season so far begins. Yes, we will have an exclusive look as the team get ready to set off to Bilbao as they have their final training session before then. Joining me, I have got Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic, former Manchester United Academy graduate. I've got Danny Webber with me. It's lovely to have both of you by me, especially with better weather, that's for sure. Last time you were here, Laurie, you brought all the rain.
Yeah, sorry about that, Zara. I also brought a height to the umbrella that was not appreciated by you, was it?
I was challenged,
I
much so.
thought I was doing my job, holding it steadily, and no, it was doing no such protective work for you, was it?
It wasn't.
Sorry about that.
You know what, apology accepted.
Okay,
I have to say,
good.
sure. You've got your shades on, you're enjoying yourself today. But now, we will take a little look at the players as they are coming out to training. Webbs, we know the huge task at hand here, heading to Bilbao, and these players will feel that, won't they?
Yeah, I think we all know that's what the sole aim at the end of the season is to win this trophy. You know, it really helps in terms of the way the summer looks and the way we set out for next season if we get into the Champions League, and this is the only way we can do it. So the magnitude of this match and, you know, everybody wanting to be involved in it in the right mindset is clearly there.
And now one of the biggest news of today so far is, so the last time when we did this live training show, Laurie, you were here, we had a little look at Ahmad going on the grass for the first time, and now he's fully integrated into this session. That's probably the news that all Manchester United fans everywhere would have been looking forward to. Absolutely,
and I suppose you just wonder now, when can he play, right? I know we're being greedy a little bit, but he's such a creative spark for United, and he was in such good form before his injury that he could play a pivotal role, right? I mean, these are huge games coming up. If he can be fit enough for, you know, even sort of 20 minutes or so away in Bilbao, I don't know if that's asking too much, maybe that's too soon, but you just sort of wonder, given the circumstances, whether Ruben Amorim is a little bit tempted to try that. But yeah, fantastic to see him out with the group again, because he has been such a wonderful player to watch this season.
There is a balance when you're a player coming back from injury, and from that player perspective, he also knows the magnitude of these next 2 weeks. So do you think he'll maybe want to push himself to be back maybe a little bit sooner than what you would have thought?
I think the nature of any footballer is once you're back on the grass, you feel like you're ready. And then it's just about managing, doing the prehab before training, before games, you know, and then obviously your cool downs afterwards, and making sure you're managing your body and doing whatever's right for your injury or the injury that you just recovered from, to make sure you stay fit. But yeah, you're always, you know, you're chomping at the bit, and he'll be no different. So sometimes, and I think Ruben's done this very well, you have to manage the minutes so that it's a staggered comeback. I think in the past, you know, when you see it all the time throughout football, somebody's fit, everyone expects him to play, start 90 minutes, and then just it's seamless coming back in, and it's not often the case. You have to gradually integrate. So it'd be nice for him to get some minutes, to get that feeling back on the pitch, Ahmad. And if it's 20 minutes, it's a huge bonus, because I don't think many people expected him back at all before the end of the season. And, you know, the competition for places and what he brings in terms of a different dynamic is, you know, he's been outstanding for United this season.
Laurie, where do you think that you would see Ahmad fit back into this team as a wing-back or a 10? You've spoke a lot about it in The Athletic. There's been a few articles about it. Where do you sit with it?
Yeah, I sort of changed my mind a little bit, because I think if Ruben Amorim's system is to have the kind of fullest impact that it can do in an attacking sense, then you kind of need a player like Ahmad as a wing-back, because you want really those wing-backs to be aggressive, to be pushed high, and then it's almost like a front five rather than a front three, and obviously like a back three rather than a back five. But you feel like his best work is done in that sort of number 10 role, with the ball outside the box, kind of dribbling into the box, exchanging 1-2s. Obviously, that's how he scored his goals against Southampton. But he obviously has that work commitment to track back and put tackles in. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he does develop, because United do have quite a few players at the moment for those number 10 positions, I would say, that where their best position is. And maybe then, yeah, Ahmad as a wing-back would be a kind of real aggressive moment for him.
We can have a look at the gauntlet right here. It's for Ahmad and also Matthias de Ligt. Some great news there that he's back into contention too. Hopefully he wasn't hit too hard there in that.
You're always trying to, when you're one on the outside, you're always trying to get a good hit in. You know, you'll never know it's you, and you always got to catch them sweet on the top of the head or something. But
just don't hit the ankle, right?
Yeah, just
leave the ankle alone.
Leave the ankle alone. Yeah, anything above waist height is on limits. But no, it's nice integration. It's nice even just for them to be out and feel like they're back in the mix. You know, made a fuss of for literally 10, 15 seconds. But it's a great way to integrate back in and build the camaraderie around and the excitement around them being back on the training pitch.
I mean, that's the main thing, isn't it? We can see here that the camaraderie is there, and you need that. You've got Bruno Fernandes and Ahmad having a little conversation there too. I mean, Bruno was captain. He'll be delighted to have these players back in, won't he?
You need all your tools available to you, you know, and he'll be delighted, as you say. You know, he plays well with Ahmad. He understands how important Ahmad's been this season. And we'll be delighted. Like I say, you're delighted when you get your best players back or your highest performing players. And from an attacking perspective, it really gives us a different dynamic. As you said, Ahmad can play wing back, he can play in any of the 10s. And yeah, I'm glad to have him back.
That is the main thing. So it's a great group to have. Obviously, it's a bolstered up squad. And Laurie, we've had a bit of a conversation about Athletic Club. They haven't had a fixture this weekend, so they've had a lot fresher legs than us. How do you think that'll help in this game?
Yeah, it's a big sort of advantage, really, isn't it, for them? I think they also rotate a few players in their previous game as well, so clearly all their focus is on Thursday, whereas Ruben Amorim, I think, had to go fairly strong, didn't he, away at Bournemouth, I think, to get the momentum, hopefully, into the players, but also purely because they do still need points in the Premier League. I know it's not the absolute focus, but the fact that they don't have a huge squad at the moment to change around with this sort of injuries on the edges of it. So I think that feels like we had this, didn't we? I remember the game away in Milan in 2006-07 when United had won 3-2 at home, and then Milan basically just rested all their players for that weekend match and tonked United 3-0 in San Siro. So hopefully it's not going to be a repeat of that. But clearly I think Amorim's, at least with Ligt and Ahmad being back, then you're sort of starting to get a few more options, at least if they are able to play.
It was a tough physical game at the weekend. However, it was Rasmus Højlund was the player that managed to score to obviously seal that point for us. And there was elation on his face when that happened, especially from all the players too. And he said he needed that goal.
Do you know what? I think I said this numerous times in the games leading up. And when he's had a barren spell, sometimes as a striker, it's not necessarily by great creation that you score the goal that breaks the duck and gets you back into a rhythm. And he needed it. He knew little about it, but then he sort of managed to, it was instinct that enabled him to manoeuvre his foot to score the goal. And sometimes you just need that goal to go in like that, and then it gives you that feeling back again. And I think it really will do him the power of good. I can see him, and from what we've seen so far, can see him going on a run of, he's sort of the type of striker that goes on a run of scoring consecutively. And if that's the case, there's no better time for him to do it than now, leading into the back end of the season where we really could do with the goals. Especially
when he needs that confidence, but even more so when you compare that to the Europa League form that he has when he's one of the top goal scorers. He's been so confident there, and it just shows that he has these layers as a player, doesn't he, in his development? He does.
And listen, he's a young man. Don't forget it. I know the price tag would sometimes suggest different, but he's a young man who's really got to learn how to master that position. But from a goal scoring point of view, as you say, Europa League, he's been up there. His goals have been really important, and that's the one you'd like to think that in his mind he's confident playing in the Europa League because of this season so far. So listen, loads of work to do. One goal doesn't just change the dynamic completely, but what it can do as a striker is get you going in the right direction and scoring consistently. And I think that will have. It will have the sort of effect on Rasmus that's positive for the club.
Laurie, there were questions at the weekend as to defensively who would be there, especially with the news that Diallo is out. Luke Shaw ended up playing 90 minutes, and Ruben said that wasn't the plan. But what did you make of Luke Shaw being back in action?
It's obviously a big positive because he's a highly technical player that, at his best, can do damage for United, particularly in his crossing, I think, is a probably underrated aspect of his game, and that's what Amarin sort of touched on afterwards. And even there was a point at which actually I think he was left centre back and Dorgu was the left wing back, and Shaw kind of decided, I'm going for left wing back role here. Actually, you're staying back, and he got it forward and whipped it in, and it was a decent cross. Didn't come to anything ultimately, but that's the kind of ability he's got. I suppose you just wonder, with the problems that he's had, how much can he go up and down that wing, and so that's why the sort of left centre back role seems to potentially suit him. Hopefully the 90 minutes has been fine to him. He seems okay obviously in these rondos right now, because I think we had it, didn't we, when he first came back under Ruben Amorim. He played sort of 3 games in quick succession as a substitute, but then he suffered a breakdown again. So you just, we were talking about it before with Ahmad, obviously you want to make sure that these players are primed, ready to go, because I suppose it's a different matter. I mean, Danny knows about this, right, where it's a different matter from training intensity to then actually doing it in a match.
Very much so. But what you'll find, like with Luke, the fact he's played 90 minutes will be a huge thing for him as well mentally, because you can say what you want, you can feel as fit as you want, but that 90 minutes that's been evading him for a while will really...
Yeah, it was a year. It was Wolves, February the 1st, 2024, I think.
Exactly,
last 90 minutes.
So that will give you confidence that you can trust your body, and ultimately when you've been out for that long, you need to learn to trust your body very quickly. And on the surface of it, we'll all look at him and say, oh, he's fit and he looks great, but there'll be little things that you've been unsure on, where you've broken down before. The more situations you can have where you're in that similar position and you come out unscathed, just gives you that confidence in your own body, and you can relax and play your football. So that 90 minutes will have done him the world of good, it really will.
And when you look at experience in this squad, there are players such as Casemiro, who knows exactly what is needed in huge fixtures like this. And when you look at the changes in the squad, we've got plenty of younger players as well. That's a player that can just bring that experience onto them and teach them in these high-pressure moments how to stay calm. Yeah,
very much so. And I think Casemiro's form has really picked up since Ruben's come in. He understands the assignment. I think it's helped him, the formation that's been played, and he's really, there's been a real upturn in his performances. So the wealth of experience, as you say, the amount of Champions Leagues he's won and titles with Real Madrid, will be vital, helping everybody to win this Europa League.
We need to. I mean, you think about these Europa League games, how huge they are. This is Manchester United's 100th Europa League game as we are going to embark this week. And when you look at, as I said, the mix between the youth and the experience in this squad, there's players such as Harry Amas, for instance, Laurie, that has just shot onto the scene. And the fan experience for them, there's been so much applaud from over on socials, haven't there?
Yeah, I think he's done well since he's come in. Obviously, the game at Newcastle, some quick feet. He's very similar to Luke Shaw, isn't he, in many ways, the sort of build, and I think he's had that for his career at United so far, so he probably won't thank me for mentioning it again. But, I think he's been sort of knocking at the door, hasn't he? And he's got his opportunity more recently. It's just, there's so much emphasis, I think, on those wing-back roles that to have multiple options is very important under Ruben Amorim, and particularly left-footers as well. I think he quite likes having, a good balance between right and left-footers in his squad, even putting left-footers over on the right-hand side. So Harry Amas, we're seeing Sekou Kone there, I think, as well. Jaden Camerson, the sort of right full-back, I think he's looked good when I've seen him for the youth team. And we also saw, I think, Patrick Dorgu and Nusayr Mazraoui are training sort of separately. I don't know if that's just a fitness thing where obviously the guys that know the sports science are obviously well across it and are giving them the right kind of treatment ahead of the game.
One of the biggest things at the weekend against Bournemouth is that we were surprised about was how strong that lineup was. Webbs, do you expect any more changes in this game, or do you think it could be similar?
No, I think obviously he's going to go as strong as possible. It does raise the question because there's more options now. Is Ahmad going to be fit enough to take part? Is he going to be on the bench? Is he, would he play first half and change, or would he play first hour? We don't know, and I think that's the beauty of not being so obvious for the opposition. If Bilbao are looking at it now, they're thinking, okay, well, who is going to play? What formation are going to play? Who's going to play in what positions? Would Bruno play deeper? Would Bruno play higher? Because he's guaranteed to play. And that's the beauty of having everybody fit and competing for places.
We know how tough it will be at Bilbao. They've been known as the favourites, haven't they, so far?
Yeah, I think they finished second in the league phase, and they lost one game. seem like they don't concede any goals at home. Although United score in every game of the Europa League so far this season, I know that's not necessarily a revelatory fact, but I sort of was going through the results and I was like, actually, they've scored in every game here. 28 goals in 12 games, 2.3 on average. So I'm, Bilbao have obviously got nothing for the attacking force of United. Well, particularly, I'm sort of being a bit facetious there, but particularly when you have got, the quality of players coming back, hopefully. Ahmad just giving that extra little dimension to it. When you were chatting about Casemiro and Champions League before, he was just mentioning that actually in the rondos before they started, I think. So I don't know if that's sort of a bit of a flex from him to say to the guys, listen, don't worry, I've been in these kind of situations before at the absolute, elite level. So, I've got this one.
It will be interesting to hear what Ruben Amorim says in his press conference. That'll be from around 6 o'clock on the Manchester United app tonight. Make sure you tune into that because he is so honest with his words, isn't he? And do you think that's obviously a great influence on these players ahead of these huge games?
I think it leaves less guessing. When your manager communicates clearly to you what's demanded of you, what he expects from the whole group as well, it really leaves less guessing. And as players, sometimes you can overthink things. And when he's communicating and telling you what is needed, it leaves you a clearer mind to go out and focus on what you need to. So, I've been really impressed with how he's dealt with the whole situation with the media. With whoever he's come into contact with, he's done community work, he's done everything, and what you'd expect of somebody who has very high standards, genuinely.
It is always interesting, especially as we have a look at these last couple of minutes of this training session that we'll get to have a look at here. But as you've said there, Ruben Amorim is very much so, as you said, wanting to know every aspect of this club. Whenever we do pieces like this, he comes over, introduces himself to anyone, and he wants to be the soul and heart of this club, doesn't he?
That's really why they hired him, I think. Obviously he had success on a tactical level, on a competitive level over in Portugal, but I think also the way that he holds himself, the way that he can speak in public, that's what they wanted, right? Manchester United is a huge club. To have the face of the club be able to address very delicate issues compellingly, I think, is a huge bonus. And he's obviously a smart guy. He certainly wears his heart on his sleeve. He's said some pretty strong stuff in press conferences, which certainly I think players will respond different ways to, right? But I think he absolutely knows himself and absolutely knows what he wants from this team. So that's the kind of base level of what you want from a Man United manager.
Webbs, when you look back at that game at Lyon, how strong we were then in the fight that we shown, we're more than capable of getting the result in Bilbao. No,
we are. We definitely are. Look, man for man, we're capable of winning the trophy. I think our main focus would be concentration. Throughout games, making sure that we're focused. If we take the lead, we remain focused on the job at hand and do the details right. And I think that's our only thing sometimes. As you saw in the Lyon game at Old Trafford, we're ahead, we relaxed. Then we had to find something and dig deeper. You want to actually be controlling the games throughout.
OK, well, that is it then as this exclusive look on this live training session before they head to Bilbao. But there's plenty of action on MUTV. Make sure you tune in. As I said, Ruben's press conference will be on the app later on tonight. But as well as tonight, you've got the women's team as they take on Chelsea at Ligt Sports Village. They've got live comms on that from 8:10 this evening. But tomorrow for that huge game in Bilbao, all the coverage from 6:55. See you then.